Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2013 Advanced. Earlier on in the course we looked at regression and correlation, and I showed you how to calculate the line of best fit through some values and also to look at the strength of the correlation between two variables. One tool that you can use to assist in this is to use the graphical facilities of Excel 2013, and that's what we're going to cover in this section. So earlier on in the course, the last example we looked at was this one, where we have a plot of time, in this case quarters, against sales, and we were looking at possible correlation to see if this was a straightforward linear growth in sales over time. Now what I'm going to do is to remove the chart that we drew at that time. I'm going to remove the unknown quarters, the ones that we were using the relationship to predict for, and I'm going to remove the data here, which is the data table containing all of the relevant metrics related to that relationship. Now before I do that, I'd like you to just take a note of three numbers in this table. The first number in cell E5, 2.923, etc., that's the gradient of the intercept line that we calculated from this XY data. The second number in F5, 89.3, that's the intercept of the line. And the other important value is the R-squared value, which is a measure of correlation, 0.894. So just remember those numbers, because I hope you're going to see something similar to those again in a couple of minutes from now. So let's just get rid of that lot. And we're just back to our raw data, quarters and sales. So first of all, let's draw a scatter chart rather than a line chart. So insert, and then one of the options here is scatter chart. I'm just going to choose that one, which just has the data points on it. And then what I'm going to do is to just make it a little bit bigger and just add a little bit of information to the labels and titles. So join me again in just a moment. Okay, so I've done a little bit of work on the title and the labels on the axes, changed the chart style a little and changed the scale on the vertical axis. Now what I'm going to do is to draw a trend line on the graph. Now if I draw a trend line on the graph, what Excel 2013 does for me is basically to work out what the line of best fit is and actually show it on my scatter chart. Now in Excel 2013, one of the newer features is that if you have a chart selected, you have a button on the right here, this one with the plus symbol on it, and if you click on that, it's actually an alternative way of adding or removing chart elements. So for instance, if I have data labels here, if you just hover over that, I can see what would happen if I clicked there. The data label in this case would be the value of the sales in thousands, so effectively it would be the Y value shown there. Similarly, if I hover over error bars, it shows me the level of error horizontally and vertically for each point based on the best fit for the data. Now to add a trend line, that is a line of best fit, then all I need to do is to click here on trend line, and then if I just click away again, you can see the trend line fitted onto the scatter chart. Now just a quick look at that tells you that that looks like a pretty good level of correspondence, a pretty good correlation between time and sales. So let's just go back to that again. You may have noticed the little wedge at the edge there. If I click on that against trend line, I also have alternatives for the trend line. I can look at a linear trend line, which is the one that I get by default, an exponential trend line. I can look at a line that provides linear forecasts. So as you can see, what's happened there is it's gone beyond quarter 12 and gone on to predict quarter 14. I can also choose a 2-period moving average trend line. We've not talked about moving averages on this course, but if you understand moving averages, that's a pretty good tool to use as well. And then if I click on more options at the bottom, you get a panel on the right where you can format the trend line both in terms of its appearance, but you can also add information to it. Now let's suppose in this particular case I wanted to show not only the trend line, but if I go right down to the bottom, supposing I want to see the R squared value, so that gives me a numeric assessment of how good the correlation is between these two variables, and I might also want to display the equation on the chart as well. Note also up here alternative trend line options, so logarithmic, exponential I've mentioned already, polynomial, power, moving averages, etc. Let's close that and see how that now looks. Now we get, you can probably just about make out in the top right hand corner there, the y equals mx plus c. We've now got y equals 2.9x plus 89.333 and an r squared value of 0.894, which is the r squared value you had before. So rather than do the calculation in the way that we did earlier in the course, if you just want to plot your variables on a scatter chart, then add the trend line, then the relevant coefficients, the coefficients for the linear equation and the correlation coefficient are shown on the graph as well. So that's a good way of supporting an analysis of regression and correlation on some data with some good graphical evidence. And of course you can format this graph in any of the available ways. So it's time for you to do another exercise now. I'd like you to take the data in this workbook, which is example 17. The data shows the number of hours that some students each spent studying for an exam, and the number of hours is shown in column B, and in column C is the score that each student then got in that exam. And I want you to draw a scatter chart and show the line of best fit and the R squared, the measure of correlation between the variables hours of study and score. That's it. My answer to this is example 18. I'll see you in the next section.